Hey, all, it's the Poor Sports Seattle podcast, and Fangraphs put out their top free agents list, and we're going to talk about it. I do want to take a moment. Um, Yesterday, we lost a friend of the podcast, Bob Springer, who, if you've watched any of the live streams or if you're aware of this podcast, we've talked about him a lot on the podcast. Back when Alex was on it, we talked about it. And I recorded something yesterday. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky right now, and I recorded something yesterday that was emotional, and maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't. I'll talk more about Bob uh, one way or another. Either that will come out, or I will talk about Bob in a more appropriate setting. It was a little raw, and maybe more like appropriate to send to his wife than to send. Not like it wasn't like body or anything like that, but it's just maybe a little more appropriate to send to his wife and less appropriate to put out on a sports podcast where I'm trying to get views and clicks and stuff like that. So, um, Bob Stringer was like one of the first and it's at times the only supporters of my comedy career. So, very very sad day yesterday, and we'll talk about it more in the future. But I do want to talk about this list because we went over the NBC Sports list of top 100 free agents with predictions, and I'll tell you, I was pretty critical of the list, and as I went down this list, I'm a little surprised, frankly, at how similar this Fangraphs list is in some ways, and we'll start with the number one. The number one player on the list, and that should be the number one player, I think, on all these lists, is Kyle Tucker, who is the top free agent. There's no doubt about that. And this is kind of a cool thing that Fangraphs does. They have an expert or a quasi expert, Ben Clemens, the person that wrote this article. He predicts that Kyle Tucker is going to get 10 years, $370 million, and they also do some crowdsourcing. And then they they display here the median and average crowdsource. So median and average, if you remember in math, produce different results. Usually they're pretty close, but looking at both median and average, you can get like when there's a weird, uh, heavily loaded on one side thing that's pushing the average more. Median usually will suss that out. So Ben Clemens has Kyle Tucker 10 years 370. The audience has him at 8,280. Um, the median crowdsourced number is 8,280. I haven't looked through this list completely. I believe that the general rule on this, it's a little bit like the inverse of like the Rotten Tomatoes fan score, where typically critics are harsher on movies than than the audience, and I think in this case the audience is a little more hopeful that their team can acquire someone at an affordable rate than Ben Clemens is. So I would say, uh, in general, expect for the median crowdsource number to be lower than what than what Ben Clemens says. Kyle Tucker, 10 years, 370, to me is out of range for the Mariners. I think he is decent fit, not a great defender, but a decent fit. I just don't think it's not going to happen, folks. I don't think anyone is under any false expectation that the Mariners were going to sign uh, Kyle Tucker. Alex Bregman's a little more interesting. So Ben Clemens, this is a situation where Clemens has actually a shorter contract and a higher annual average value. So he has Bregman at 4 years, 140 million. I can't remember what the NBC Sports one was, but I think it was in a comparable range. I want to say like 4,160. I'd be a lot more into it at 4,140 than 4,160. I don't really want a fifth year. I mean, obviously, if it's a fifth year at the same total salary, fine. But you spread the luxury tax it out, I guess. But that last year is going to be pretty ugly. Um, Bregman's like a perfect fit in Seattle if he had any desire to come to Seattle. I don't know how much he would care. I think there'd be a little bit of pushback from fans who just hate that Astros team that cheated, who booed George Springer because of that while he was writhing in pain on the ground in the playoffs. But yeah, So I just wanted to go over a couple guys that I think are interesting for the Mariners in this list. So I believe that the NBC Sports list had Bo Bichette second or third. I think he was third, but I think theirs was in order, roughly in order of guaranteed contract. I remember theirs being, I think, a little bit lower on Cody Bellinger, who 5 years, 140. I don't really want Bellinger for 5 years necessarily. Schwarber they have at 3,105. Oh, I should just pull that list up. Let me see if I can do that real quickly. Well, we'll go through this and then you can make the comparison. I certainly think I have Schwarber higher than Josh Naylor. I was most interested to see where they had Josh Naylor because I think my instinct is that there's pretty severe overestimates by these prognosticators on what Josh Naylor is going to get. But now we are 2 sources in. So Kyle Schwarber, 3 years, $35 million. Pete Alonso, 4 years, $30 million, 120 total. I'm both those I'd be one, I don't think the Mariners are signing either of those. And frankly, like, you go Pete Alonso at 125 WRC plus, or would you rather have him or Jorge Polanco at 125 WRC plus? And we'll see Polanco down this list, I think. Well, he officially opted out. I assume this list assumed he would opt out. I did not actually look at what Polanco's at before this. I did look at what they expect from Naylor. So just remember, Pete Alonso, they have at 4 years, $30 million, total of $120 million. Bo Bichette, 7 years, $203 million. Again, this is like, I'm all over this. I'm taking this. I'm talking Bo Bichette into playing third base. If it's me, and I'm letting Bo Bichette be my third baseman of the future. I don't have any belief that Ben Williamson is gonna be anything more than a very good defensive shortstop. By the way, I don't think a great, or not shortstop, third baseman. Ben Williamson, I don't think is like a great defensive third baseman. I think he's a very good defensive third baseman. Bo Bichette's probably would be closer to like an above average, and would probably regress to average relatively quickly. But the bat is so much better than Ben Williamson. The bat, I just don't think is ever going to play at third base, frankly. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, that's my genuine feeling. The one thing is, as a general rule, you just keep drafting shortstops and let them fall down the defense, let them regress down the defensive spectrum. And the first spot for those guys, depending on their arm strength, is usually third base or second base. And so having that spot open isn't bad for some of the guys coming through the system that aren't Colt Emerson, although Colt Emerson could conceivably end up at third base. Anyway, Bo Bichette was interesting to me there. You get to, by the way, Edwin Diaz, they have at 3 years, $25 million. Again, the crowd has him at $21 million. But for 4 years, I don't want to be the one signing that deal. And then we get to Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor is the 11th ranked free agent in the we should just read the whole passage because he has him at 4 years, $25 million, total of $100 million. He says Naylor is pretty clearly a cut below Schwarber and Alonso as the best first base / DH type on the market. But he's at the top of the second tier in my eyes. His batting line is heavier on base and lighter on slug than your average first baseman, but that doesn't lower my estimation of him at all. It would be one thing if he was a pure singles hitter or in the middle of a career year, but after 4 straight seasons of solid offense, there's little reason to doubt that the way he gets, or little reason to doubt the way he gets his results. Offensive value is offensive value at the end of the day. The real sticking point in Naylor's negotiation is going to be how many years he signs for. Teams don't offer long deals to role players anymore, and when you get down to it, that's what Naylor is. By the way, totally agree with that. He says, I do think that he'll beat everyone outside of the top 10 other than the guy immediately following him on my list. More on him later, blah, blah, blah. because his combination of age and proven performance stands out relative to his cohort. And you can, if you want to find this article, by the way, it's like very early. Oh, this is good. In the player notes, he says, recently I heard someone say that Naylor looks like a bouncer at a Tampa strip club, complimentary. And when a professional athlete can be accurately described in such a manner, it highlights the contradicting factors teams need to untangle before inking them to a free agent deal. And I think this is why I just don't see I don't see his deal being, if Pete Alonso gets 4 years, 120. I just don't see Naylor getting 100. I just don't see them as players that the market will value comparably. And so Murakami, he's got him at 7,154 as a 26-year-old. You know, I guess I'm like, there's a little more upside there to me. I'm a little less worried. A guy that can theoretically play a little bit of third base, maybe. I'm fine. Whatever. I guess I'm more interested in that than Josh Naylor. This is why, like, the kind of widely spread belief that Josh Naylor is just irreplaceable. He cannot be replaced in this. I just disagree with. I think that you can find a guy who is comparably valuable, and there's other culture guys. There's other positive culture guys. Gino Suarez comes in here at number 13, and the estimation for Gino Suarez is 2 years, $50 million, $25 million annual average value. His 2026 Steamer projections, it's one of the Fangraphs published projection systems, have him at a 2.6 wins above replacement player. I'm out. I don't want anything to do with Gino Suarez at 2 years, $25 million, frankly. You got to let him walk. What would be, I think I said like a 1 year, $15 million deal is what I'd be probably willing to spend on Gino Suarez. I'm really going to be curious because these numbers are a lot closer to the NBC Sports list numbers than the Spot Track market value numbers. And I tend to agree with the market value numbers a little more, but we'll see. The other thing I did is, when we looked at that list the other day, I went to the last year's free agent trackers, and at like the 50th player, how much guaranteed money did that guy get? And they were, significantly, their 50th player, their 100th player might have been getting more money than the 50th player in reality. Which I don't know that the folks that are making this list are auditing themselves that way, but that's just, to me, like, it's, as you get to the bottom of the list, just remember that, like, it's harder at the bottom of the list to predict who teams are going to value and what they're going to be willing to pay them. So here's Gleyber Torres, who's just a constant, I feel like is constantly a Mariners like link, and I don't want Gleyber Torres, but 3 years, $54 million. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't think I would want. I definitely wouldn't want to pay that. So Michael King, I was listening to. I was on a flight yesterday, and I don't listen to a lot of Seattle sports podcasts because I don't want to. Same reason I don't watch so much stand-up comedy anymore, because I just don't want to like infect my brain and steal an idea kind of accidentally. But they were talking about, I was listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, which I can't even remember the name of the guys that are on it. But they were talking about Michael King and another guy as these like kind of relievers turned into starters, as the kind of guys the Mariners might target, and which they did. What's the guy's name they got yesterday? Was it Cole Tucker? Was that? It feels like a very baseball name. Is that right? Cole Tucker? Cole Wilcox. Cole Wilcox is just a baseball, just a big 6'5" white dude that throws 97 mile. Perfect name for that dude. Who's interesting, by the way. Fastball slider guy that throws 97 sounds like a Mariners reliever to me. Okay. We're going to keep going down this list. And I think you're just going to see like some of these numbers they're just higher than the other list. Sometimes the years are longer, and I would say I disagree with that. Let's see. So Kazuma Akamoto is a 30-year-old instead of a 26-year-old, and they expect 4 years, $72 million. If the Mariners think one of these guys can play third base, I think that it makes a lot of sense to really pursue one of these Japanese guys. I'm a little less into it if they're first base only. We're gonna keep scrolling down this list until we get to Jorge Polanco, because we're at free agent number 25, and is Polanco gonna? I almost want to find Polanco on here, because Ryan O'Hearn played a little bit of outfield, more of a first baseman, 2 years. He was a guy that I wanted at the deadline. I think a lot of people wanted at the deadline. Struggled in San Diego, like we talked about on the past video. Here we go. Jorge Polanco at 28. Second base, shortstop is how they have him listed. He's not a shortstop anymore. That's incorrect. He's maybe a second baseman, third baseman, probably could handle first base. And again, they're projecting him with a 114 WRC plus. That's not that far off of what you would expect to get out of Pete Alonso or Josh Naylor, frankly. What would you rather have? And please comment. I'm asking, and I'm happy to address the comments later. Would you rather have Jorge Polanco at 2 years, $30 million, or Josh Naylor at 4 years, $100 million? And I'm going to tell you, my preference is Polanco. People aren't, I think people will disagree with that. I think Polanco could probably pick up first base pretty easily, and he could play other positions, and he's pretty much an equally good hitter when healthy. When healthy is a problem, for sure. I don't know. We'll go through this. I don't think there's going to be any other players that are super exciting for the Mariners. There might be some, like Raisel Iglesias. I don't want to spend $12 million on him, but I do think the Mariners might be like those, like in February and March, start picking up the pieces of of what relievers are left over. Danny Jansen, $9 million guaranteed. God, that just is a lot for a backup catcher. I don't think anyone's gonna have him start. Caleb Ferguson at 1 year, $8 million. Fuck off. Take him. I just don't. That's. I think we're to the bottom of the list, and there's no one else. Justin Verlander at number 50. Again, if it's 1 year, $10 million, and you've traded away Luis Castillo, and Verlander's probably looking for a ring. He's 43 years old. I think he's probably got some you're not bringing in Justin Verlander to be a mentor. You're bringing him in to be a back-year rotation starter and to be rock solid, eat a bunch of innings, be effective. And he probably will be that. He's not going to be the Verlander that we've always known, but I would be interested at 1 year, $10 million for sure. All right, come see me do stand-up comedy. Go to Casey McLean Comedy on all your social media platforms, and I'll post about it there. Thank you all for listening to this. Rest in peace, Bob Springer. I will talk to you all later.